Hello, everyone. Wednesday, 11 a.m. Coaches call. Questions, bring them on.
Hi, everyone. So these past few weeks, we have been talking a lot about twisting pull-ups and twisting push-ups. And we've gotten quite a few messages with people who have given them a try, and people have seen great progress and they enjoy doing them. But there's been this kind of theme of that question popping up. Why should we actually do twisting motions?
Okay. So first thing first, it's working for everybody, and there's stuff starting to engage and get better that it hasn't done before. So there has to be something to it. And all I can say and explain about it right now is stuff that I know at the moment. Kind of makes sense. It works. So we'll keep on doing it. The base behind it between, okay, everybody kind of knows that humans move in twisting motions, right? Um, but there's a different world that's kind of prohibiting us to think like this. So what does it mean? Okay, so let's take a practical example first. Let's take the biceps. Let's take it in the conventional world, which is about flexing and extending. So basically, your biceps doing rather this and that. So your biceps is obviously flexing your elbow, and in the traditional world, everybody would say the triceps is extending the elbow. Cool. That's not wrong, of course not. But I think it's incomplete and not precise enough in terms of training. So what does it mean? I think we can all agree on that we're looking for more range of motion in your joints and more tension being created by muscles supporting that full range of motion. I think nobody can be against that, right? Okay, so let's shoot for it. Um, this is your biceps and your elbow, right? Okay, but that's actually not the full range of motion of your elbow. So the full range of motion of the elbow is actually when you, surprise, surprise, start twisting your forearm towards the inside. That's more range of motion and obviously more tension required for the biceps for the elbow. So that means why twisting is working, because you start like this and you go all the way in and up. So this is why flexion and extension is not, it's not enough. Again, it's not wrong, but it's not enough. Everybody in the world of bodybuilding knows this. Arnie did the Arnie curl, so he started like this and curled all the way up to towards the inside. So this is not something that I invented or whatever, but I think we need to take that concept and train normal people like this too. Twisting is ensuring that you have full range of motion and starting to practice full range of tension behind it, right? So that's the issue with just looking at the biceps as an elbow flexion muscle. Again, not wrong, but it's imprecise and incomplete in my world. So how did we end up there? Because I was so frustrated when I did, for the first time I did twisting push-ups, and a couple of weeks in, my biceps grew, my triceps grew. I was like, why did nobody tell me this? I think it's really simple, because where muscles and bones and joints and all that stuff is coming from is from studying that bodies, right? So anatomical maps, brilliant stuff. Muscle maps, bone maps. Like, I cannot show you a new muscle. Like, I'm not a magician or whatever. That stuff's done, right? And then somebody started with, okay, defining words, how joints need to move, flexion, extension, adduction, abduction, whatever the words are. But it was never connected to actual moving weights in training, right? This is all based on and literally studying that bodies. So what does it mean? I give you another practical example. The pec, for example, the pec major. So if you press on the pec major in a dead body, you know what happens to the shoulder? Like when you press here, the shoulder rotates towards the inside, right? So in a textbook, the pec major is an internal rotator of the shoulder. And that's not wrong. It's just, it's incomplete for training. Why? Let me give you the opposite version of why this is wrong in training or not incomplete. Grab something, grab something real quick, something appropriate here. Okay, I'll grab something. Okay, so if I squeeze in, and my pecs are fully on like this, right? What's my shoulder doing in terms of rotation? Is it internally rotated or is it externally rotated? Right, it's externally rotating. I was like, wait a second. So in training, if I engage my pec, that means my shoulder is also rotating towards the outside, but that's not in the textbook. The textbook says the pec is an internal rotate of the shoulder. It's not, and in training, you should also do this. So I think that's what we have to add to training is that combination of, okay, we have maps, anatomical maps, which are awesome. And I tip my hat to everybody that worked on that stuff for basically centuries. This is great. This is a great base and we need it. But we also need to create a manual of how to use those anatomical maps in training. I tried to write a book that's a manual for how to use your bones and muscles in training. That's what I'm doing. And the last step is, okay, now we need to have like a practical step-by-step approach, how to start practicing this. Templates, hello. So
Mhm.
we have the anatomical maps, great. We have the book as the manual of understanding, okay, what's supposed to happen with those bones and muscles. And then we have the templates where it's like literally on Monday, you're going to start practicing those 5 exercises, but with the wisdom or the knowledge behind what's in the book
Mhm.
or what comes from the anatomical maps. I think that's a good roadmap and a good step-by-step process to understand why we have to do twisting push-ups in training. Long ass answer, but that's how I came up with twisting, and that's why it's actually working in practice because this is, I don't want to use the word functional, but I think this is actual functional training, full range of motion with full range of tension, but we have to move differently than just thinking about flexion, extension, and all the other words that describe where bones can move.
Speaking of functional, um, I just had a thought pop into my head when I was squeezing my phone is that actually when I have something in between my hands and I squeeze it, it's not just my pec that is engaged, but also my bicep. My biceps.
Yes.
Isn't it bad? Because I guess we have the next step is that when you're training, you're not just, or usually we are not training in a way where we're just isolating one single muscle, but there's like more that comes in there.
Yes. So, okay, everybody speaks about connecting muscles and doing functional movements. So you using more muscles at the same time, I guess, in functional movement patterns that mimic daily life. This is not wrong, but I think the base behind it is something different. I think fundamentally, for millions of years, we have carried and whatever put stuff in between our hands to engage muscles. Right? It's very unnatural for us human beings to have weight outside of your body. Nobody would carry stuff like this. Those are my
Mm.
hands. Like nobody would carry. Like you always try to keep it as close to your center of mass. You always try to keep it in between your hands because that's how you create more tension towards the inside, and that's what we've done for millions of years, right? Okay, so this is the first step. It's a feedback loop. So it all starts with your hands and then it goes all the way up. So the story I told about the pec, there's a there's a chain of muscle, it's described in a book, that literally starts at your hand by not by pressing a certain area, but by having stuff in between your hands. And this is going to activate like your inside forearm, your biceps, into your pec. It goes all the way down to your obliques and the glutes. So this is the stuff that actually makes sense practicing for. That's why the neutral pelvis and the glute max is so important. Because if that thing is not dialed in, everything else falls off the wagon, right?
Mhm.
So yes, and that's what twisting does as well. It connects those muscles into muscle chains, plus it adds also the full range of motion with full range of tension. Um, idea or thought.
Um, this might be a dumb question, but is actually when we speak of the, because you mentioned the neutral pelvis, and when you squeeze your butt, is that actually kind of like the equivalent to bring in bring in that rotation into the upper arm example we just said, kind of like just third below the belt?
Yes.
Uh,
So that's a huge difference between the shoulder and the hips. So once you load the hips, loading the hips is super simple. Squeeze the booty and everything else will fall in place. If you squeeze the booty, the right muscle, the right bone position will happen. So your pelvis gets neutral, your femur rotates to the outside. This is the most stable position for your hips. This is twisting happening through loading, squeezing the booty, and keeping it squeezed. You don't have to do anything weird to create a twisting motion in your body. You don't have to crank your feet into the ground. You have to push your knees out. No, no, no. This is not how this works. The shoulder is the actual opposite. So you have to create those twisting motions, and then muscle gets used and obviously engaged the right way. That's what we're starting with, loading the hips first, and that's what we start with body weight movements for the practicing positions for the shoulder first. This is super important to differentiate between how to train your hips and how to train your shoulders in training, because you just cannot do, because body weight exercises for the hip sucks big time. Like, just think about you doing lunges, or you're making somebody do lunges. Like, this looks like the most unstable thing ever.
mhm,
And people have a hard time finding the right tension, and it's not really getting better. So this is not what a hip needs. A hip needs loading first, do a carry, for example, and squeeze the booty. And the shoulder needs a lot of twisting push-ups, a lot of twisting pull-ups, a lot of twisting dips. Again, this is not new or rocket science, because take a look at gymnasts. Gymnasts do this without using the words that I use, but gymnasts have by far the best upper
mhm,
body strength to body weight ratio, like by far. There's not even a discussion about it, right? And look how jacked they are, and just take a look at how little assistance work they do, right? Like, have like huge arms, like huge backs, lats, pecs, biceps, triceps,
mhm,
everything's dialed in, because take a look at the training. They're doing a lot of twisting motions. They're doing all the
mhm,
good ring stuff. They're doing the floor
mhm.
routines. This is how the upper body actually starts to grow muscles. Again, we all know this, because that's why calisthenics people have huge upper bodies. But this is not working for the lower body, because if you do air squats and lunges and step ups, your legs will not grow.
Mm. But it's actually quite fascinating because coming from when you look at exercises from a like normal fitness standpoint, you would you kind of like always think that okay, the body weight lunges, for instance, are like the perfect warm up, and you think like okay, let's start with that and then proceed to do something else. But I just recently had that experience of training someone who's like a very beginner, and we did some sandbag squats, like no problem. But when we got to the walking lunges at the end of the template, because we did the Holy Hip Healer template, he was struggling like a mofo because it was so hard for him to control the movement and kind of like keep control of everything that was happening there. So it was just kind of interesting to see that when you come from a normal quote unquote fitness background, when you see that shift and you see that, oh, actually, it's easier if you follow the rules.
that's the that's the downside of having to sell something, because if you have to sell something, then you're going to just do stuff that everybody can do, for example lunges and air squats. And
Mm-hmm.
you okay, yes, you cannot really do harm doing them, that's true, but also you're not going to have much progress, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't make any sense, right? But again, it's easy to sell. It's harder to teach somebody to actually engage their glute max, get to the neutral hip. I mean, just take a look at global gyms and just look at the average male person in there having like a jacked upper body and like
Mm-hmm.
those
Mm-hmm.
two toothpicks,
Yeah.
spaghettis out of their shorts. So this doesn't come naturally, and it should actually. That's a big hint. That's a big telltale of okay, this is not how the lower body grows. And this is not just about growing muscles. This is just about okay, neutral pelvis, no back pain, no knee pain. This is not about bodybuilding legs. This is about, okay, let's fix the hips first and everything else will fall in place.
That's actually something you touched on, something that we see very much in training in the gym regularly. Whenever you do any like other exercises or like heavy carries or whatever, as soon as someone engages their butt and kind of like gets into that neutral position, all of a sudden like back pain or something like this disappears. So that's kind of cool to see that kind of like in a practical, from the practical standpoint.
Yes. So I'm not a theoretical professor of training. Like this is like 15 years of just trying things and last 2 years thinking about, okay, why is that working and why is the other thing not working? And then kind of only reverse engineering it. This is not like, okay, I have an idea about black holes, and in 25 years, this is somebody's going to prove it with a picture, which already happened. No, no, no. This is like 15 years of struggling to fix hips, whatever, and then thinking about, okay, what if it's just the other way around and
Mm,
everybody else is doing it? And you tried, you tested on yourself, you tested on your coaches, you tested on your 150 members, you tested on the weakest people in the gym you've ever met. And if it's working for them, I think we're at the bottom of a principle, which means, okay, this is how we should load the hips, why we should load the hips first. And this is why we need so much position training for the shoulder. Obviously, understanding what's the
mm.
manual behind it.